with you. It's been a short bit. I want to show you today um, part of a Native American Indian collection that I have. Besides the artifacts, which most of you know I love, the ancient artifacts, I have a collection of contemporary pieces and items that were made by Native Americans for the tourist trade, and then items that were made by other companies emulating the Native American style. And so I have a nice collection of those kind of items. And I want to show you today baskets, if I didn't say that. Native American baskets are fascinating to me. Of course, going out in the field and doing work, excavating and surface hunting and such, you never find the remains of a basket, of course, because after 1,000 years, there wouldn't be anything left of them. On occasion, with pottery, ancient pottery, you will find, and I have found many, that have impressed cordage in them, which so speaks to the ability of the ancient people to weave and such. Baskets, I had two dear friends that have both gone to be with the Lord now, John and Sue Naganagan. John was the chief of the Mankato Reservation here in Michigan, and he was a wonderful person, and his wife Sue, or Susie as most people knew her, she won awards for her baskets. And one day she took me and my first wife Kathy, or they took us into their home, and they spent a couple hours with us showing the process they go through for making baskets, which they claimed was the way they did it in ancient times as well, that it had been handed down to them. So the first basket I want to show you is genuinely a very, very old basket. And I believe without a doubt that it is a Native American Indian made basket. Now while I'm showing you this, there'll be some smaller pictures, but close-ups of the basket that'll show more what I'm talking about. The handle on this one is carved. You can see the knife marks in it, and it's just really wonderful. And how it's attached to the basket itself is typical of the way the ancient, or not the ancients, excuse me, but that Susie would have attached a basket handle. And then there's the weave around the rim of the basket, and very simple but nice weave, making a very sturdy basket for carrying. I'm not exactly 100% sure what would have been carried in a basket like this, but it is an awesome piece. I would date this at about 1900 to 1920, which would really give it a good value, even though there is some damage to it, as you see here. I found this, well, I didn't actually find this. My friend Gil found this, Gil Alberg, and he was given permission, as was I, to go into an abandoned house that was being torn down. The guys that were tearing it down gave us permission to go in. And he found this, and it was filled with toy cars. And I didn't find any baskets there, but I found some cool stuff anyways. But very, very wonderful old piece, and a piece that I feel proud to be able to have in my collection. Being that it was, I would tend to believe that it is would have been a Michigan Native American that made this, just by the style of it. So anyways, a very nice piece, and I would say on the rare side. Now the next piece here was found also at that house. Now it is an old basket, very old. I can't really say that it was Native American made. It was made in that style, but there are things about it that just do not look totally Native American to me. I don't think I've ever seen them attach a handle on the outside with little nails, as this one is. And the weave is quite large, as you can see. Not saying that they couldn't do that, but I have never seen a large weave like that on an Indian Native American basket. It has quite a bit of damage to it. The rim too is made differently, in that it's put in place with little tiny nails, or whatever you want to call it. The inside of it, the material used for the basket, it shows a very rough texture to a pattern to it. So it is, even though it may not be Native American, it was made to emulate that style, and it does have considerable age to it, as does the one I just showed you. Again, I would place this about 1900 to 1925 era. Really nice piece. Too bad about the damage, but you can't expect a basket, an old basket, to not have some damage to it. Now, this is a more modern piece. Again, it looks like a Native American style. I don't believe it is Native American made, but it was made for I believe, the Tgourist, and it is a style of the Native American. The attachment of the handle is much more typical, like the first one that I showed you, and but it's not hand carved. It is wood. You can see really nice grain in the handle. The weave is much tighter than the last one I showed you. It has a design around the bottom here with a different material rather than just the flat. It has these rounded pieces, and it also has those as a decorative motif around the rim. So while it is, I'm uncertain whether it was made by Native Americans, it is a nice basket that looks Native American. I wouldn't ascribe great age to it. I'm thinking like maybe 1970s, 1960s or 70s, right in that era. This little one is a particular favorite of mine. I do believe this is Native American made. It was made for the Tgourist trade. I say that because of the intricate detail of it, and because of the rim that you can see around here. It flares out, which seemed like a typical motif that the Native American Indians of the Southwest used, and I do think it would have been Southwest. It is a coiled basket, as you can see, and nicely worked in elements of color for decoration. Just a really super little piece. I would date this probably to the 1920s, 1930s. Nice find. Again, my friend Gil, he found this at a church giveaway and snapped it up and knew that I would love it and brought it over to me to add to my collection. He's a good friend. He finds a lot of interesting items that go into my collection. This basket reminds me of, it's not, but it reminds me of pine needle, the pine needle work that Native Americans did in the Northeast woodlands, inclusive of Michigan. The painting, the colors on it are hand painted. It is just a really nice weave, and whereas it definitely looks Native American. If it is Native American made, it was again made for the tourist trade. This would have, the top comes off. Very nice basket, which I would ascribe to the 1940s or 1950s. It would have had some kind of a little small handle on the top. It could have been sold as a sewing basket or something like that, but again, it would have been sold to the tourist trade. And very nice piece, very nice piece. Lastly, in the baskets, I want to show you this one. This is interesting. It has a top, as you can see, that comes off. The sides are not real strong, so I'm not sure what practical use it had, but it definitely has the Native American decorative motif on it. I believe that this was Native American made, again, for the tourist trade. Very nice weave, very nice decoration on the edge and on the top, and this one still has the handle attached to the top. If I was to have to put an approximate age on this, I would call it vintage 1950s, 1960s. A nice piece, really nice. Now, I am going to shut off the camera for a minute, and I'm going to set up some other items here that I want to show you, some pottery pieces. So I'll be right back with you. Okay, here we are. What I'm actually going to show you this time are some pottery pieces, but first I got to show you this Tin Indian. I believe he's 1950s, 1960s, and he moved and beat on the drum. Really a cool piece. It was battery operated, and I have to do some work on the terminals and able to, that he might work again. But I think I can get him working. But a very cool piece, very nice collector's piece, probably 19, from the on-off switch, I'm going to say 1950s. This is really just kind of a strange little on-off switch here, but a really cool piece. Love the guy. And again, as I said, that was from my friend Gil. He found that. He, a good friend to have. He brings a lot of pieces, interesting pieces into my collection. Now here's a traditional style that the Indians of the Southwest would have used. And well, not just the Southwest. I think this style probably was fairly common throughout what would be the United States, North America. It has Native American designs on it. I don't know if it's real turquoise, but it's got two turquoise looking pieces on there. And it looks like it was an actual throne vase. But I don't know if that's the look it's supposed to have or not too. Now this was actually made by Treasure Craft USA, and this came out in the late 1960s, early 1970s. Very nice example. Love the classic design. Very pleasing to the eye. Very almost calming to look at. It is glazed brown inside. The earth tones are awesome. Awesome. Now speaking of earth tones, I want to look at, well, let's do this first, never mind. This is a wedding vase, called a wedding vase. This would have been Southwest. This is, I don't believe, Native American made. Again, it was made as a tourist item, sold in tourist shops, probably around the country. And, but the double spouted vessels like this were called wedding vases. I'm not sure exactly why. Very colorful, nicely done. Probably 1950s, 1960s. There is no company listed on it, but I have seen many of these pieces, and I've seen many that are quite large. So I'm happy to have this little piece in my collection. Just, you know, it just has that traditional look to it because it is based on a traditional ancient design. Now we were talking about natural colors and things. This is marked on the bottom, I'm gonna not say this right, I'm sure, Nema Digi pottery made in the USA. And this company makes traditional designs. Again, I think there's a Native American connection to the company. But anyways, they always use these wonderful swirls of color, and you can see so many different things in these swirls of color. Like on this one, I see what reminds me of a thunderbird here. Then over here, the mountains with the evening sun reflecting on them. A very nice piece. It's all unglazed, this pottery, except I don't know if you can count those colors as a glaze, but it's unglazed, almost like a bisque feel to it, but it's glazed inside. And again, this is such a traditional style of the Native American Indians, particularly of the Southwest. Now here's another piece from that same pottery, and this almost looks like a raging buffalo, but again, they use wonderful traditional design. This one's not glazed inside as the other one was, and it's unglazed outside, much like a bisque. I guess you could consider it a bisque. And it has a very nice mark on the bottom. And this is still pretty abundant. You can find this at a lot of thrift stores and places that, if you want to build a collection of this type of material, now's the time to do it, because there's still a lot of it available. That might change as time goes on and it comes into its own as a collectible. This is the last piece of that I have right now. Little juglet design, and again, it's got the wonderful earth tones that I just love, and such a cool little piece. Yes, I love that kind of pottery. Now they didn't just use the earth tones. I've seen different ones with blue and greens, pastel shades too. I much prefer the earth tone colors though. It just appeals to me personally. Now the last piece I want to show you today, this was made by, it says Rodriguez, 89, copyright. Now I don't know if this is a homemade piece. I don't really think it is. But anyways, traditional design, glazed inside and outside. It has a Kachina face there on the front of it. Then here is also what looks like a Thunderbird motif, and back here some kind of a flower design. Very, very heavy duty. Very nice little pot. I bet you can't guess where I got this one. That's right, my friend Gil. That's 1989, so it is vintage. But these are just a few of the items in my collection of tourist pieces and pieces made to look like Native American style. In the future, I will do another video on, because I have all kinds of materials, colorful materials that fit into that same category. So I hope you enjoyed this today. It's great to be back with you. I'm still having my problems with YouTube, but I'm still trying to fix those. Keep me in your prayers for that if you would. I would really appreciate it. But thank you for being here today. Love each and every one of you, and God bless you always.